Hello and welcome to everyone who joined the webinar on the topic, The Promise and Perils of Artificial Intelligence in Customs and Trade Automation. I'm Enrica Naujoke, CEO of CustomsClear, and having worked for many years as a customs broker, I know very well the complexity of the customs and international trade field, as well as the challenges that arise in practice. With me is my colleague Ramūnas Šablinskas, our IT solutions architect and research scientist. Ramūnas has been working with artificial intelligence since its early development. He is an expert and an excellent source of knowledge on this topic. Our session will consist of two parts. In the first part, I will briefly present what the CustomsClear ecosystem is, what AI tools you can find within it, and will introduce those tools. Afterwards, I will hand over to Ramūnas, who, among other things, will answer the question of why these tools can be trusted, which is not quite the case with ChatGPT and other large language models, because they operate based on different principles. You will learn that from Ramūnas. And now, I would like to begin the presentation of the CustomsClear ecosystem. CustomsClear is a knowledge platform for customs and international trade. We can call it an ecosystem because representatives from the whole supply chain take part in the exchange of knowledge, from beginners to field experts and from a wide range of sectors: exporters, importers, carriers, customs brokers, lawyers, government officials, and so on. Moreover, the knowledge sharing takes place in various formats: through live events like this one, through articles in the Customs Compliance and Risk Journal, videos, courses, and private forum for professional discussions. If you are not yet using the platform, I hope this event will encourage you to do so. You can see the link on the slide. Now, let's talk about the artificial intelligence in the context of knowledge. When thinking about knowledge and artificial intelligence, I would like to ask you to dedicate a few seconds to consider the answer to this statement, whether you would agree or not. Human intelligence is more important than artificial intelligence in building a sustainable future. I do believe that you agree with this statement, and indeed, we probably don't want a future where we become irrelevant, controlled by AI. To remain in control of AI, we must stay smarter, keep our knowledge growing, and thus developing human intelligence, especially in the context of AI, must be a priority for all of us. I would also like to emphasize that our approach, CustomsClear approach to AI, is also through the human expert, who ensures the quality of the data entering the technology and also ensures the quality of its outputs. After all, it's the human who bears responsibility for the results. There would be no point in sending a robot to jail. With this approach, we develop Picoco AI, and I would like to introduce this. Infrastructure. It is a proprietary AI infrastructure developed by CustomsClear, designed to simplify regulatory complexity. At its core is a regulatory library focused on customs and trade compliance. The library's knowledge can be accessed via assistant interfaces available as standard solutions, which I will demonstrate to you, or customized solutions. A customized solution, one developed by us, you can find on Lithuanian Customs website. As well, you can access the legal library not only through assistant interfaces, but also through different other types of interfaces, for example, even through a spreadsheet from your office. This way of access will keep all data securely within the company system, while still you will be using the Picoco AI infrastructure. Finally, I would like to address two questions that we most often receive from our potential users or the users. The one question is, what is the difference between Picoco AI and ChatGPT? And the other question is about the benefits of Picoco AI tools. Let's start with the first one and consider three aspects. The very first aspect is probability versus knowledge. ChatGPT operates on the principle of probability. It provides a likely answer. Peacock AI tools provide a precise answer. Second aspect, online sources versus legal instruments. ChatGPT is trained on all information available online up to a certain date. Peacock AI tools rely solely on the latest legal and other reliable, expert-curated information in the relevant field. Third aspect, large language model interpretation versus human expertise. ChatGPT is a large language model designed to work with any text. Peacock AI is an infrastructure designed for working with legal instruments, where the quality of data and responses generated by its tools is ensured by experts in the field, for example, experts in the sanctions field. And I also would like to provide you an example of a question that I asked ChatGPT and our Sanctions AI tool developed in the Peacock infrastructure. The question is, are there any EU export restrictions on HS code 8707 from the Netherlands to Russia? As you can see, ChatGPT provided a good general answer, while our tool provided very specific and very concrete answer. It said that, look, based on this article of this regulation, your goods are subject to luxury goods restrictions. And what are those restrictions? The tool said as well. It said that the main item, which is vehicle, because these are vehicle parts, value exceeds 50,000 euros, then parts valued over 300 euros are prohibited. Let's provide more detailed information for the tool, and let's provide more of the information than necessary and see how the tool answers. The most expensive part costs over 500 euros. The whole shipment, 3,000 euros. The value of the vehicle is 49,000 euros. The tool, when answering, immediately identified that only this number matters and said that because the value of the vehicle does not reach the threshold of 50,000 euros, is less, your shipment is not restricted. Also, the tool provides all the sources that it checked to formulate the answer. Here can you see them. So much about differences ChatGPT and Peacock AI. And now the answer to the question, what are the benefits of using such tools? First of all, obviously time saving. We all know that searching through legal information can take not just minutes, but in more complex cases, it takes hours. The tool performs this work for you in just a few seconds. Also, very important that the tool works only with up-to-date information, the latest legislation, and always verifies all necessary sources, protecting you from potential human errors, such as using old sources, outdated sources, or missing to check a legal norm. And the third point I would like to draw your attention is the importance of consistent responses. We all know again that interpreting legislation can mean receiving as many opinions as the colleagues you ask. The tool always provides the same expert-approved answers, ensuring consistent work across the team, no matter how big the team is. And now I'm finalizing my presentation and would like to invite you to go to the CustomsClear platform to look at what tools are there and how they work. We go to customsclear.net and we are not logged in. Here we can see immediately an assistant who says that you can chat with that assistant about CustomsClear and about the company's services. Besides responding to general questions, it responds as well to technical questions, such as how to include my company's details so that they appear on the invoice. The tool beneath, as you see the window larger, provides step-by-step guidance, and you know exactly what to do. When you are logged in on the platform and when you are a member of the platform, soon you will have the possibility to talk to the content, in other words, to the expert knowledge contained in the articles of the platform. Currently, the service is being finalized to develop. Some features are already available. And let's ask simple question just to see the answer. Let's keep the topic artificial intelligence and let's ask whether I have contributed articles on the topic to the platform. Yes, the tool answers that I have contributed 4 articles. And final assistant, talking about the content of the platform, is a very interesting one. You will be able, and you can try this already, work with that, talk to one article. Why it is important and worth it, because some articles have not only the article's text, but also have many links to various sources, and some sources can mean a document of 400 pages. Therefore, if you want to either go deep into some news or you don't have some knowledge about certain aspect of information provided, you are able to talk to the assistant, ask your questions, and receive the answers from the text and from the sources contained in the text. Let's take an example of a question. Again, let's stay with the topic of today, the artificial intelligence. And the question is, what are the latest news about artificial intelligence? In this quite long text already, though only 3 weeks are covered, not full months yet. And as we can see, the bot reads or overviews the long text for us and provides the news about the artificial intelligence contained in this text. And one more feature that I would like to share with you, and that might be very useful for those who are not that comfortable to read in English language. If you are more comfortable to read in your native language, ask the questions in your language. And as you see, here I use the German language. The tool recognizes in what language you have asked the question and translates for you the answers into your language. So much about the assistance on the platform, to talk about the platform and about the content available on the platform. And now I would like to show you our main tool, a tool which is available for free testing and free trial. I would like to invite you to do that. When you go on the platform, you click free trial, and here you can see the tool. If you click here, you can see the possibility to start immediately free trial, and you can also learn what the tool is capable to do. The tool checks goods codes, you need to provide commodity code, shipping routes, you need to provide the shipping routes, and partners against EU sanctions against Russia and Belarus. The tool also knows dual use and military rules and checks the goods against them, and also sanctioned persons and firms. The tool also contains some national restrictions, currently Lithuania's. And the features are important. The tool uses only up-to-date sources, the latest sources, so you will have the relevant latest information. It provides legal references, as we know, in the sources. The new features are being added constantly. For example, be able to do historical checks for audit purposes. You will be able not only to ask whether those goods are sanctioned today, but you can ask whether the same goods on the same route were sanctioned 2 or 3 months ago. And finally, important, if you would wish to use the tools via your systems, to include into the tool your documents, to enrich its knowledge base, it is customizable, and please reach out to us, we can do that. And I would like to show you one more way how to start free trial. Type anything here, and the tool will tell you, please start free trial, and then you can talk to my knowledge base. Again, I prepared one question. which I will start with when I am logged in, to demonstrate to you and to comment on further possibilities, what the tool does. The question is, can I import this commodity code from Belarus to Lithuania? The tool can't answer. It says that it needs more digits of the commodity code and suggests some of them. Let's see, our commodity has these 8 digits. Now the tool can check all the restrictions and prohibitions and answers us that the import is prohibited. Here we can see where the prohibition is set out, in which article of which regulation. Here we can check the regulation and we see that regulation is national Lithuanian one. So the prohibition is set out in national legal acts. Let's go to the next example. From those example questions, let's pick this one. It is quite complex, as you can see. We export goods from Poland in transit via Belarus and Russia to a company in Kazakhstan, and we provide company's name Radio Automatica. The tool responds that the shipment is prohibited and provides quite a lot of information where the prohibitions are set out. First of all, transit restrictions apply. We can see the regulations and we can check them. The entity, the company, is sanctioned. And here we can see as well the excerpt from the regulation, and we can check whether we really are exporting to this company, exactly this one, sanctioned company. Also, we'll learn about re-export restrictions, that this code, we must ensure that this commodity is not re-exported from Kazakhstan to Russia. And also, we learn that there can be some exceptions if we are able to use them, and the exceptions from the regulation are provided here. So we've got a really good detailed overview of all the restrictions and prohibitions applicable to this commodity code and this route to this person, and can make a decision, a well-informed decision. Sources checked are 58, quite many because of the sanctioned persons. I would also highlight that not in all cases you need to provide commodity code and the route. If you would like to ask only about a sanctioned person, for example, company Sirius, you can write this question. And here the answer comes again with the excerpt from the regulation. And the final possibility that I wanted to show you, we all working with legal documents usually don't trust simply to the tools. We ask the questions, we always want to check whether it is really set out this way in the regulation, to read with our eyes. With this tool, we don't need to go to ORLEX to check the regulation. We can ask it to give us the article of interest, for example, Article 12b, paragraph 1 of this Sanctions on Russia regulation. And here it comes, the article from the latest consolidated version. And we can read it directly in the tool, this way saving further our time. So much I wanted to present to you. I hope the tool is of interest and you will try it out, keeping in mind that this is only one of the tools we develop. We can develop also customized tools for your companies. If you have a need, if you have an idea to discuss, please feel free to contact us. We will be more than happy to have this discussion. And now I would like to hand over to Ramonas. Please, Ramonas.
It's a complicated task. Just in few minutes, try to bring the confidence to this new technology, or actually explain the state of the art of this technology, because, well, the technology is actually not very new. It's been living there already for a few decades. And I happened to participate in starting the first neural network programming, the first classification applications. So basically, it took quite a lot of time for the technology to ramp up to the levels where it became recognized by everybody. And in early days, we did not call it artificial intelligence. We called it neural networks, artificial neural networks, and we knew exactly what are the capabilities of those technologies under development. But when you call it intelligence, so the question becomes kind of important. What is intelligence? How can we understand this intelligence? Because you see, just to gain trust, you need to understand something you are going to trust. And in order to understand artificial intelligence, at first we must look into the regular intelligence, the intelligence we see in our everyday life. We ourselves are intelligent beings, but I just guessing that you never analyze in details how your brain works. So let us run a short experiment and try to understand our own way of thinking, and then we will switch to artificial intelligence system so that we can compare how we as people are different from those intelligence systems, and whether we can trust them with our answers or not. Okay, so to run this experiment, I'll show you a photograph. And the first, it's not quite usual photograph actually. If you are going on seashore and seeing something like this, you might become curious and will try to come closer just to look at it, because this phenomena of one stone on another and standing on a point, it's not quite usual. So, but when I show you the picture, so in information age, this becomes even more complicated, because you don't know for sure whether this picture is real at all. It could be created with the artificial intelligence tools, for example, and the quality of those fakes are quite good, and then you can't tell for sure whether it's real or not. So your first reaction when you're seeing some picture is just validation of the data. Is it real or fake? There's too much of fake data going around, and your brain is trying to check it whether it's real or not. Just to clarify it, I'm giving you the screenshot of my phone, which I used to make this picture. And then you can see some metadata on this picture, like the date when it was taken, the device, the camera information, the lens information, exposure information, and even geographical coordinates where it has been taken. So I'm just hope that this proved you that this picture is real. Then, okay, so we just noticed that this data is not quite usual in the real world, because in the real world you just trust your eyes what you see, but in the digital world on internet you have to validate this data. So it's a critical thinking function of your brain, which happens automatically. Then the next level of intelligence of how we use our brain in this world is a comprehension of the scheme. What you see is actually answering the questions. What you see, how it works, when it was taken, where is it? So basically, you interpreting this data, putting into the context. So when you are going, for example, for a walk and seeing something like this, so you understand now your focus of your attention is on this few details. One stone is balanced on another stone, and you notice that there's no special equipment to hold this upper stone, that it stands by itself. And you understand that maybe this scene is a little bit dangerous for you. If you come too close, it might topple, it might hurt you. So you just don't go too close to it. But basically, your brain interprets and try to put this information into your world understanding, so that you understand what could be the danger, at least for you. And the next stage of your brain work is then understanding why this is happening right now, because, well, the scene is not quite usual, and for some reason it works. For some reason, this upper stone holds there, and it's not that easy to understand. For example, quite a lot of lower organisms like dogs and horses, cats, for example, they are not able to understand the principle of work of this. And actually, for many people as well, it's a kind of mystery why this is happening. We'll try to go into this deeper later on the later slides. But for now, a few people went to school and they understand a little bit physics. And they know that if you get the tetrahedron shape, which is most stable shape in this universe, so if you manage to find 3 points on the pointed side of the stone and carefully balance it on those 3 points so that the mass of the center is projected in the area among those 3 points, so the stone might be stable in quite a long time, and only earthquake or maybe strong wind or maybe some seagull, if it lands on the stone, will topple it down. So this understanding phase already including a knowledge. If the information is data combined with the context, then the knowledge already encompasses information from several areas which contribute to understanding why this is happening, how it works in the real world. And the last step of the intelligence application is when you have some type of knowledge and you want to apply it in real life, then you have to understand what does it take to replicate this. And it is already quite complicated aspect. I'm now showing you at the left side of the slide a boy standing with the fishing rod, so that your brain could automatically interpret, calculate the distance, something like 20 meters. And from here, you can get inference about the size of the stone. It's about half a meter large stone, and most likely it weighs from 30 to 60 kilograms approximately. So then you can understand that in the real world, maybe you are strong enough to lift a stone of 30 kilograms and try to balance it with your hands. But if the stone was weighing something like 100 kilograms, so there's no way that you would be able to do this trick. It's too heavy, so you will need some additional equipment. So this is your brain doing analysis, and it's not automatic anymore. While this validation and comprehension step, they were automatic, understanding needed some efforts from your side. You need to remember the secondary school courses from the physics. Then this last stage is already quite complicated, and you need to put some effort in making your brain understand the scene more thoroughly, so that you can for yourself tell whether you can apply this knowledge in the real life or not. So this last step, this wisdom step, is usually the most complicated in the intelligence application. So in the real life, when we are talking about this international trade, we had a similar situation with the data, which is usually normative documents, so legal acts, regulations. So at first you need to understand whether those regulations, those documents, they are real, they are not fake. So you're looking protected documents like digitally signed documents, or you download those from websites which have those protected tools for keeping data safe. And then you get this information from those documents, you comprehend your international trade situation, and then you understand how to apply those rules from those laws, from those regulations to your specific situation. So this is the last stage, this application stage is quite complicated. Without specific training, without specific skills here, it's already difficult to implement. So now If we want to estimate whether a specific system has some intelligence in it, we need to run another experiment. We try to estimate whether a fifth grader student is intelligent. And here's a trick. We say, okay, the student is a human being, so he or she must be intelligent. But we forget that children up to a certain age, they do not are trusted to live by themselves. They have limited agency. So basically, their critical thinking is not developed. It is easy to feed them false information, and they need basically a trusted proxy to interact with this cruel world. They basically rely on their protectors to survive. And they also can have comprehension problems. Like, for example, in my previous example, yes, when they see a stone balanced on the tip of the point, they might not understand the real danger of the scene. They might come too close while your brain is protecting you from any danger, immediate danger, so the children might not understand this danger. So, and of course, in communication, there's quite a lot of misunderstanding using of some ambiguous words. So it's not that easy to say that, okay, this child is talking clever things, so it must be intelligent. But communication, when we involve communication, it becomes kind of confusing. Children actually do not understand the world, especially small children. They use mythical ideas intermixed with reality. They believe in tooth fairy, in Santa Claus, and in various other aspects of their lives, which are a bit of magical. And they don't have the tool to distinguish fantasy from the reality. So this is why we don't trust at least small children. But it's also applicable for intelligent systems, as we call them. Okay, and the wisdom aspect, of course, children can be wise as much as their parents allow them to be. So if they get more agency, so they are responsible for some areas which are not dangerous to their lives, that's okay. But of course, we cannot trust on decision of a child in many situations. So why it is so complicated to estimate intelligence? The problem is language itself, because when we are dealing with some subjects, either students or artificial intelligence chatbots, we assume that they interpret the words we use in the same way. But it's not, occasionally it's not possible. So in many cases, the competence is needed to build some world model in a subject, in a student, or in artificial intelligence machine, so that they understand how the world works. But it happens so that students are being forced to memorize material without either critical analysis of what they get, or even without comprehension or understanding of those words. So basically, they stay in this text situations when they can parrot some answers, and actually they don't understand what they say. So artificial intelligence systems are even more at risk here, because during their training sessions, they're also forced to read quite enormous amounts of texts just to produce the language model correctly. Just they can spit out semantically correct sentences. So it's not always that if the system is telling some correct sentences, those sentences are extracted from their world model. They're consistent with their internal belief system. The same large language models, LLMs, when they are producing those clever sequences of words, it doesn't mean that they understand this world according to the internal world model. And they do have some model, of course, but it's not a world model. And we hope, as a society, we hope that those schools and LLM builders they teach those systems correctly so that they understand the world. But in fact, in many cases, they just imitate development of intelligence in the subjects, either students or artificial intelligence systems, which is an unfortunate fact for us, because when those systems spit out some truthful sentences, it's hard for us to know whether they are intelligent or not. So how does this brain work? Do we know? Do we understand? So from biology, we know that brains consists of neurons, of the brain cells called neurons. And the human brain has quite a lot of neurons. The construction of one neuron is a lot of inputs called dendrites, and one output called axon, which distributes this output to quite many other neurons as an input to the next neuron. In computer science, when we try to imitate how brain works, we invented this artificial neuron. This is on the right side of the screen, and it has as well many inputs which are combined with the importance of those inputs called weights, parameters, and they are summarized and some bias added, and they are affected by activation function. So produce output either 0 or 1 usually, and this output is used as an output of the system or as an input to other neurons. And the currently most famous neural networks are large language models, which have approximately 1 trillion of parameters. State of the art, or at least they are closing to those numbers, 1 trillion. Maybe 10 trillions are happening right now. It's difficult to say. The companies are hiding this information, but we see that it's coming very close to the number of elements in the human brain, which is 10 to the power of 13. So we are coming very close. Now, in order to understand the brain of 1 trillion neurons, let's try to first understand what one neuron can do. And here is a very short example. On the right side, it's one neuron which can operate with one input and produce one output. And let us choose for it to produce a decision of whether we should wear a jacket when going outside. And on the X plane, you see in the graph the outside temperature from 0 Celsius to 25. And then the points indicate 2 groups of people. One group is wearing a jacket, blue ones, the others just going out without jackets. And we just observe that the warmer the air outside, so the less people are wearing jacket. And we need to find this rule, how a neuron could make a decision or could get a suggestion that please wear a jacket because it's cold outside. So basically, we deploy a training process where initially the neuron just guesses some temperature, some value, the green dotted line on the graph, and then it checks how many errors did it make. And if there are too many errors, it makes another guess, and this process is repeated until it finds no better solution. So here on the graph, you see that approximately at 11 Celsius, you get recommendation to wear a jacket. Although those 2 classes overlap a little bit, and there's no correct answer actually. So I also included the formula on the right side. You can see that this recommendation is calculated by using this very short function, which works exactly as it is used in LLM models. So 1 neuron calculation is quite simple. Now the problem is that when we get a more complicated task than having 1 parameter as an input, for example, we have 2 parameters, or maybe 200 parameters, then we need more neurons. And those neurons then are connected in some complicated ways, layers. And then we see that the number of parameters is becoming much, much higher. Like in this two input neuron case, it's something like 17 parameters are needed. So if this network is going to solve some problem for us, we need to find those 17 parameters. In the large language models, the number of parameters are trillions. So what happens is that this training process is extremely long. It takes months, years even, or at least quite a lot of resources like microprocessors. Tens of thousands of microprocessors are working on just finding those correct parameters so that when giving some input, the neural network spits out some acceptable output. Well, so just to understand how LLMs are trained, they are trained by giving some text as an input and by trying to make the network guess the correct letter when it goes after this input text, the next letter, or maybe next word, or maybe next paragraph. So when it starts spitting out the paragraph, which is more or less correctly formulated, then the training is considered finished. But to achieve this goal, it takes quite a lot of energy. And when you estimate how much of resources does it take to train something like GPT, for example, so it takes months, and the value of electricity used is bigger than any other types of resources, like renting tens of thousands of microprocessors or getting personnel to tender this training process. Those expenses are quite small when compared to the bill of electricity you get. And this electricity bill already comes in millions of euros, even tens millions and hundreds of millions. So the problem with those data centers which host those brain imitations for those large LLMs, they actually require their own energy source. And now when big companies are trying to build those data centers, they already think about their own electricity, either providers or dedicated electricity generation for those data centers. This is how expensive it is just to find those parameters. Okay, so how can we trust on those neural networks if they are not the models of the world, but they are models of just language? And it's obviously you can't trust them directly because it depends on the text material used in the training process. If you give some garbage material, so you will get some fairy tooth stories spitting out network, which of course you can't trust it absolutely. And even if you put materials from Wikipedia, from correct books and correct legal information sources, even in those cases, it's not necessarily that you get the correct answers for most of the questions. So the first, or maybe not the first, but the set of differences when talking about living organisms and those IT organisms, so that they don't have critical validation of this input data. Just like children at school, they don't have the idea why this data might be misleading or false. So they use it as an input and they learn it by heart. They do not have consistent comprehension of this information because they can only listen to the text. They don't have other sensory inputs. Texts are only the only input. This is why they are called language models, not other types of models. Then they do not understand what they get. And just because this understanding needs understanding of the real world, but they don't see the real world, and they can only measure relations of those text words, text data. And of course, wisdom, of course, they can correlate some situations which uses similar words, and then they can try apply some sentences from some other similar situations. But on general, just because they don't have this world model understanding, it's kind of risky just to trust on those sentences which they spit out. Another aspect is that those LLMs, they are given too much of information in the training session, so there's no way they can remember everything. And they have to be specifically trained to remember your regulation, which you need to use. And this recalling process is not perfect. So basically they lose some data and they cannot cite those input text correctly. They make mistakes. And as well, very much important aspect is that those networks, they treat all the information as a probabilistic. They do not understand what is important. And this is why it's a little bit risky just to trust on the model, which is language model. Once again, it's not a world model because it doesn't have the concept of importance. So how do we use those LLMs to build a trusted application? The idea is that the fifth grader brain can still be used to produce quite a lot of useful work. We just have to narrow down our application and write a specific algorithm, a specific set of instruction, how to produce, how to find this information which is suitable for specific context. So imagine that we are having exam for this fifth grader student, and this student doesn't have exact or excellent knowledge in this area, but they do have access to all the literature on the topic, all available literature which is validated, which is double checked, which is that doesn't have too much of redundancy, which clearly explains the topic. So if you give during exam any question which the student is able to find the answer in this literature, so the situation is okay. The student will simply find this similar situation and will parrot it back to the professor. In most cases, this student doesn't have to read and interpret this question and produce answer on their own. So they get all the relevant sections this from the literature, it's available, and they just have to compose the answer. And even in many cases, they get the answer already produced by some other type of automation, by some deterministic method, which simply gives information in some not very nice, maybe machine data format. So the student, this LLM, has to simply reformat the information to paraphrase into human readable format. And that's actually the main use of LLMs. What we do in our systems is that usually get the correct information and they just paraphrase it in the human readable form. So those types of solutions, then they have almost zero chance of hallucinations or errors. Okay, so my time is up, and basically that's everything I wanted to explain for you, just that you feel more confident when using those large language models and the agents based on those large language models and the systems like ours. And basically, you have to understand that we are using the library, which is already pre-formatted for the chatbot use, and this pre-formatting was happening by the experts in the field. So basically, it's quite safe to assume that only language interface is reused from those large language models, not the brains in this case. Thank you.